Senator McGrath.
Cheers. Thank you. I must confess I am embarrassed, but I'm embarrassed for the Greens, who once again demonstrated their complete contempt for the will of the Australian people by proposing this matter of public importance today. When you listen to the Greens and those people at home, or the people in the gallery listening here at the moment, when you listen to the Greens being more concerned about the readers of newspapers overseas, it says something. We've got a Green Party here who are more concerned about the Los Angeles Times rather than the South Burnett Times. We've got a party here who are more concerned about the readers of the Washington Post rather than those who read the Cairns Post. We've got a party here who's more concerned about what hipsters living in lofts in Brooklyn think rather than families living on the bread line in Hervey Bay or Townsville or Nambour. So I'm embarrassed for the Greens, who continue to espouse their environmental socialism in the face of the clear mandate delivered to this government at last year's election, a mandate to abolish the carbon tax, to lower the cost of living for Australians and to implement practical solutions to deal with climate change. So let's not talk about what the Los Angeles Times says. I'm sure it's an august publication, but let's talk about what the government's actually doing with climate change. And I'm embarrassed that the Greens have not heeded the concerns of the Australian people, who delivered this government a very, very big mandate, and have not listened to the Australian people over their concerns over the debt and deficit disaster left to us by the former Labor-Greens government. I'm embarrassed that the Greens want to advocate and are advocating that we borrow more money. Our interest bill alone is $1 billion a month at the moment, and they want to borrow more money from overseas, put more money on the government credit card, and a government credit card that's going to be paid off by our children and grandchildren, and then send it off to an unelected international body unaccountable to the people of Australia. Madam Acting Deputy President, despite the opposition of the Greens and the Labor Party, this government has delivered on its promise to abolish the Labor-Greens carbon tax, the world's largest carbon tax, saving the average household around $550 a year, including $200 on the average household electricity bill and around $70 on the average gas bill. So for the families living in Nambour, near where I live, or in Hervey Bay or Townsville or whatever, getting rid of the carbon tax has meant real differences in terms of their wallets and their purses. But it's not just in terms of families. I was up in Corumba a few weeks ago with Senator Canavan, and we heard from fishermen and fisherwomen up there in terms of the impact of the carbon tax on refrigeration and how much their costs have gone down since the abolition of the carbon tax. In my home state of Queensland, electricity prices are 9.4% lower than they would have been if Labor and the Greens had had this way. This government is already delivering on Australia's commitment to reduce emissions by 5% on 2000 levels by 2020 without a carbon tax. This government's approach is to focus on outcomes that provide positive local environmental outcomes that reduce emissions in Australia. Rather than imposing an economy-wide tax that drives up power prices and sends taxpayer dollars overseas, the position that's actually advocated by the Greens. The government's $2.5 billion emissions reduction fund will help businesses and communities across Australia enjoy the benefits of a cleaner environment and help us to meet our 2020 emissions reduction target. The Emissions Reduction Fund is a buyback model based on activities that actually reduce emissions. This is on the basis of the largest and arguably the most effective system in the world, the United Nations Clean Development Mechanism, which to date has generated approximately 1.4 million tonnes of emission reductions, something the Greens surely would have no objection to. Competitive auctions will be held, and the government will enter into contracts to buy emissions reductions from successful bidders at the lowest cost, and payment for abatement will only be made when emission reductions are actually delivered. Our community-led Green Army projects will also support practical grassroots environment and heritage conservation activities. These activities make a real difference to the environment and local communities while providing meaningful training and skills to young people. The opposition of Labor and the Greens to these practical solutions only highlights their hypocrisy when it comes to climate change. Madam Acting Deputy President, the government has always said that it would take into account the action taken by the world's major emitters and our trading partners when considering Australia's post-2020 emissions reduction targets before next year's Paris Climate Conference, given that we only account for 1.3% of global emissions. As such, it is on the record that the government has welcomed the announcement by the United States and China to reduce or cap emissions, with those countries accounting for 15% and 24% of global emissions respectively. It is a positive step in the right direction, but it must be met with firm action. I note that in discussing the US-China agreement, the US President Barack Obama expressed concern for the Great Barrier Reef, a natural wonder and a source of tourism jobs in my home state of Queensland. However, while high-minded rhetoric and President Obama is well renowned for his rhetoric rather than delivering on what he talks about, we've got to look at how we get to this. And it's taken Obama over 6 years to reach this agreement with China on reducing emissions. In contrast, in addition to our direct action plan, our government has made tangible commitments to securing the future of the Great Barrier Reef rather than just talking about it. The federal coalition government and the Queensland LNP government, led by Campbell Newman and with Andrew Powell, my local state member, is developing the Reef 2050 plan to guide sustainability and management of the Great Barrier Reef over the next 36 years. It is the federal coalition government and the Queensland LNP government that is investing in the Reef Trust with a $40 million initial investment from this government to help improve water quality and coastal habitat along the Great Barrier Reef, control crown of thorns starfish outbreaks, and these are the ones that have been responsible for 42% of coral loss since 1985, and protect threatened and migratory species, particularly dugong and turtles. Practical steps to ensure the reef's future for years to come, not words and platitudes from a visiting head of state. Madam Acting Deputy President, it is important to remember that we can't deal with the challenges posed by climate change or any other problem until we have a strong economy and a healthy budget position. And this is what the G20 actually was all about. And instead of the Greens or Labor being all embarrassed like spotty teenagers going out with their parents, we should be very proud of what the G20 did on the weekend. It highlighted Brisbane as being, and I'm very proud to say this as a Queenslander, as being one of the world's great cities, and it also shone the light on Queensland and Australia in terms of our beautiful climate, our beautiful temperatures, and they were open for business. And that's the real story that's come out of the G20, not climate change. It is what the world's economies are doing in terms of pushing economic growth to create jobs, and what the Prime Minister of India, the President of China and the Prime Minister of the UK have been talking about. It is about jobs for people. It is about creating economic growth. And so in terms of the Queensland Government and the Brisbane City Council and the Australian Government for the work that they did on the G20, Madam Acting Deputy President, I think is fantastic. Now, as President of the G20, Australia has led the development of an agreed Brisbane Action Plan of over 1,000 measures to boost the world economy by an additional 2.1% over the coming 5 years. That's an extra $2 trillion into the world economy and millions of new jobs. By strengthening the world economy, we support job creation at home and drive the economic gains that will help to repair the budget. Graham Quirk, the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, has estimated the G20 pumped $100 million into the local economy of Brisbane. And that's not just thinking about the people on CNN or BBC, the World Service, watching and think I might come to Australia for a holiday, or I might actually move to Australia and start a business there. For the time being, with Labor's red ink still running through the books, Australia will not make a contribution to the Green Climate Fund at this time, but will instead continue to prioritise climate mitigation assistance through our aid development program. Through direct action locally, international engagement and our aid program, Australia is playing a part in an effective international response to climate change. Well, the Greens are embarrassed about what happened on the weekend. I'm not. I'm very proud about what happened on the weekend. I think our Prime Minister did a fantastic job. I think all the people who are involved with the G20 did a fantastic job. And instead of talking and moving pointless motions like this, perhaps the Greens could work with the government and act like adults to make sure we have practical environmental protection in this country, but not at the expense of growing our economy.
Thank you, Senator McGrath.